What's up, Hero Stock Nation?
What's up, Hero Stock Nation? Welcome to the Roundtable where heroes talk. I'm Tom Lamog, your host, and Matthew Jones. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? I'm excited. Are you?
I'm really excited because I know when you and I were talking about bringing on our next guest, a lot of people know that I'm a guitar player and I also have taught some of our veterans to play guitar. I never really had an understanding of the connection between music and the healing process that our veterans go through. So I know when you had come to me and you had said, you know what, I've got a couple of people that I'd really like to bring on, the light bulb in my head went off. It's like, yeah, let's definitely get them on because have I got questions?
You know, Tom, when you originally shared that thought with me about, I'm a guitar player and I don't really know how does this connect. I remember an interview I did back when I was a patient going to the traumatic brain injury clinic there in Fort Richardson, and I did an interview, and one of the things I said was, when someone told me that music could be used as a form of therapy for TBI and PTSD, I laughed that off. I thought it was silly, like no way. And then I'll tell you what, the person we're bringing on the show today, she told me, she's like, would you just stop like getting in your own way, like just trust the process here, And so I did. I mean, I fought her a little bit, but that's kind of how you have to do things. And I can't say enough about it. Here we are years after doing all this, and now I sit in a position where we're sharing stories of veterans, musicians, artists, poets. We're telling their stories, sharing them with the world, and part of that responsibility is for us to educate. So we'd be doing absolutely no service to anybody if we didn't, have people on here who work behind the scenes helping our nation's heroes do those things they need to do. So I'm super excited.
We're joined by Danielle Kalseth and Logan Walton, who do incredible work using music and innovative approaches to help veterans and service members dealing with TBI, PTSD, and auditory challenges, and so much more. We've got an hour discussion ahead of us. Danielle, Logan, welcome to the roundtable.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Matt.
Danielle, let me go ahead and start with you. Can you share your background and maybe give us an idea of the work that you truly do just to kind of set the tone?
I have my master's in music therapy from Florida State University, and I specialize in a form of music therapy called neurologic music therapy. And so that is really just using music to help increase neuroplasticity in the brain after a brain injury. So I primarily work with patients who have experienced typically like concussion, uh, maybe to moderate traumatic brain injury. And alongside of that, there's a lot of comorbidity with that. So a lot of psychological health conditions that come into play. So obviously, music therapy is a very non-pharmacological approach to working through some of the I guess dysfunctions that can happen after a brain injury. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I do.
Okay. Logan, how about you? A little bit of your background.
Yeah, so I'm Logan, excited to join you guys here. Let's see, I've always been an artist. I'm a visual artist. I am not a musician, unfortunately. That's not quite how my brain works. But I have a master's degree in art therapy from New York University, and I started this job in 2023, just after I finished my grad program. Here in the clinic, my role as the art therapist is to help, like Danielle said, work with our patients through TBI, post-traumatic stress, and other related behavioral health challenges. I do have a background in murals and community art, and I've been really lucky to start incorporating that into the patient care that we do here in our clinic. So getting people out involved and part of their communities is also another thing that Danielle and I really enjoy supporting.
So let me ask you this then, both of you, and however you would like to, whoever would like to go first, is since you're working with veterans and you're both in the arts and music, have both of you served? And if so, love to hear some stories about that and how that's connected in with your passion with using music and art.
I am, 100% civilian. And but
100%.
100%. That it was definitely a learning curve when I first started working with military. A lot of acronyms, a lot of acronyms.
Mm.
I still don't know some of them. I act like I do, but
It's okay. I don't
you know,
remember most of them.
right. So, but yeah, like it's definitely I feel I leave work every day feeling very fulfilled because of the fact that I can give back in a way that can help our military and our veterans. So like I feel like that is the number one thing for me is I definitely leave feeling very fulfilled with what I do.
Logan, what about you? Have you served, and if or are you part of the civilian group here?
I am also a super civilian. That's what I
Are you
call
100%
myself.
though?
I have never served. My parents actually did not serve. They were also civilians as
Uh,
well. But I come from a long line of Army veterans on my mom and my dad's side, my grandparents and great grandparents, so on. Um, so yeah, growing up around veterans, having friends that later, enlisted, yeah, definitely learned a lot of like respect for veteran populations and the challenges that they go through. And I agree with Danielle. Our role, even though we are civilians, we are uniquely poised to support active duty and veteran populations. It definitely helps you feel part of a greater whole. Not just for the clinicians, but for the patients themselves. So,
I'm going to jump in here, Tom. What's the thing that draws you towards music and what draws you towards art? Is it something that's been just a facet of your entire life, or is this something that you discovered and you grabbed a hold of it and now you're riding with it till the wheels fall off?
So like music has obviously always been a very important part of my life. My parents said that I was whistling tunes before I could even really speak. Like I was whistling a tune constantly. I started singing like at a very early age, and I actually ended up getting into and nobody judged me for this, but I got into musical theater. Actually, my undergrad is in musical theater, and I know.
I'm not
Danielle,
judging. I'm not judging.
what
Danielle,
is
if it makes you feel better, my undergrad is in painting. So,
great pair? Um, yeah, so
Maybe
I did
well,
musical
that's
theater.
fascinating though to me is
Yeah.
because I mean, I was going to ask, as a guitar instructor, it's like I better know how to play guitar. So I'm having, music theater. It's like that's still pretty demanding. I mean, was it singing or was it writing scores for, for
Yeah.
singers, stuff like that?
It was like performing in musicals,
Theatrical.
like Fiddler on the Roof. I
Mhm.
was in and Bye Bye Birdie. I did a lot of reviews. Like
I'm writing this down. I swear. I'm gonna
I
keep this
know
forever.
it's quite something. It is. So I did that for like 12 years and I traveled all around and I say that I slept on a lot of couches. I ate a lot of like ramen and was lived that like starving actor kind of lifestyle. And then
Right.
I actually ended up doing a show in the interior of Alaska. And I didn't work for a cruise line company, but like on a ship, but I worked on their land resort and I did a theater show there. And I fell in love with Alaska. Like I just it was a place that just kind of brought me peace. And such a change from New York. And I'm from Florida originally. Anyhow, I'm getting down the weeds in this, but I decided that I just wanted, like, I felt very removed when I was doing theater. Like there was like that fourth wall that you could never break, and I hated that like feeling that I was getting so much from performing and singing and moving and connecting and bonding with my castmates. But it felt very removed from the people in the audience. And I just felt like there was more that I could give, and how I could do that with music. And so I found music therapy. And honestly, I thought that it was like, I thought you needed to be like a classical pianist or like a harpist or something to be a music therapist. I totally had the wrong I totally had misconceptions that of music therapy. And when I looked into the career and the profession, and I was like, yeah, like hands down, I have to do this. Like this is my calling. And so, yeah, at like 33 years old, I went back to school. I got my master's degree. It was really hard because my brain was moving really slowly.
So it was a
But
change. It was a change from
yeah,
theater into now I've got to really study music theory.
yes. Oh my
Uh,
God, it was horrible. Um,
That's what my students say, just so you know.
Oh, so now you know they're
Weird.
not lying.
Yeah, and like I had to learn the guitar, and all these kind of things that like kind of later in my life. And but it was awesome. And yeah, so that's kind of I decided to move back to Alaska, and I got the job working at the military treatment facility here in Anchorage, and it was just it just feels like it's like the right fit for me. And those misconceptions of music therapy, like I get to share with so many people what music therapy is. I think I've had almost like 7,500 encounters, music therapy encounters since I started working here in 2017. Like that's 7,500 people. Did I say 7,500 people? Or 75,000. I can't remember.
100.
7,500 people that have gotten to experience music therapy, like our military and veterans who've got to experience that music therapy. So it's been really awesome.
Do you think it's kind of like saying that, when you're doing like musical, theatrical stuff, it was like that fourth wall you could never break. But on the other side of that fourth wall was where that impact had to happen, and that's probably what you felt like.
Yeah.
That's where I should be. So
Yes. Like I
really cool.
like
Did
I
it feel
feel
like you were back on the stage with them sometimes, where it's kind of like I want you to learn how to sing a little bit because this is something that you felt you could express music through is through singing, or is it something that's different?
well, it's funny that you asked that, Tom, because what what I do, well, part of the initiative that Logan and I work for, part of it is going from clinic to community. So I designed a kind of a community engagement program in Anchorage where I take my patients out into the community and we perform the music that we work on in our clinical jam session. So we get to go share the music, and we do this with we go to like our domiciliary here in town. We go to an assisted living facility for veterans. We go to Chris Kyle Patriots Hospital, go in inpatient there and sing and play music for them. And it's all, my patient selected music that they get to go, like we work on in our clinical jam group, and then we go share it out into the community. So there is an element of performance, although that is optional, although highly recommended.
Mhm. I mean, it feels
I
like
And
when
Matt's
you're
still
able to
there.
take uh, when you take the skill that you're passionate about, you were going through music theater, and you obviously loved it. There was such a passion for it, and it must be a wonderful feeling to say now that I am with music therapy and doing all of these things with these members in our community, our veteran community, there's got to be this connection, this real passionate, this authentic connection between yourself wanting to do this rather than it's just a job.
Hmm. Oh, for sure. Totally. I mean, all the time.
How rewarding that must be.
Yeah, it is.
So from an art standpoint, how are you able to go ahead and take the passion, Logan, of the arts, um, and do the same thing, or maybe it's something similar, not necessarily how Danielle does it. Maybe you can share how you do that with the arts.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Danielle, I have a background that is very much rooted in art, whereas hers is in music. And you guys are right. I really think it is just the deep appreciation for the craft. I mean, art historically throughout my life has been like a friend and a diary and a way to connect to other people. Um, and so I think understanding just how powerful art can be and, during my undergrad, I was able to actually worked as a studio intern for a muralist in Philly. So we were working directly on these like very large community art projects, and just seeing the impact that the art had on the neighborhoods that the murals were placed in, seeing people come together just to design the artwork, and have themselves and their stories reflected in these building size pieces of art, was really beautiful, just how it could change the landscape of the neighborhoods. Um, so I knew that was something I kept wanting to chase. And so I, of course, pursued art therapy. Um, Sorry if this is a roundabout way of answering your question, but yeah, I think having our own relationship with our art, with our craft, just allows us to share that with the patients. I mean, our ultimate goal here in the clinic is, well, of course, to return our patients to duty, but to also set them up for the skills for future success. And whether that is through the art or the music or community engagements like our community cafe.
When you speak of arts, is
Mhm.
this like drawing, painting? Is that how you define art? I mean, could it be photography? And I mean, we have literature. I mean, people who have written
Mhm.
poetry.
It's a very like loose and nebulous definition. I call it
Yeah.
like visual art. Um, Obviously, I'm not sitting here in my office, strumming a ukulele like that. That's Danielle's job.
Could
Um,
be.
Maybe.
We could show
Um,
you.
Never too
but
late.
I mean, at least here in my office, we do a lot of painting, we do a lot of drawing. Our art therapy program, luckily, we have a lot of like structured assessments that we can use to assess treatment goals, patient needs, things like that. So oftentimes when people first come into art therapy, I'll have them do, for example, like our Bridge with Path assessment. And that is designed to assess life transitions, kind of where somebody is at in their journey, any blockages, obstacles in the way, how are we going to get this person from point A to point B? And that is a really great way to just kind of set the bigger picture for treatment moving forward. And then from there, we may get into specific work on developing those adaptive coping skills for managing stress, anxiety. We may, depending on patient needs, have to do some trauma processing. In art therapy, we do a lot of mask work. One of the first things you probably see is all the pictures of the masks that they do. A lot of those come from Walter Reed, but we do a lot here as well. And they're a really great way of allowing the service members space to examine, the impact of their traumatic brain injury, of post-traumatic stress. It's a great way of exploring like the face that the world sees versus the person that is kept within or even unable to express themselves. And then from there, we may get into further trauma processing or I don't know, the sweet spot for art therapy, at least, is anywhere from like 10 to 12 sessions. And so we may have to terminate treatment after that and, start encouraging our patients to build those community supports, like going to community cafe or coming out and doing group work or mural projects.
Why is this need so prevalent with veterans? I mean, I'm
Now
just
we're
curious because this goes back to Tom. We want you to come teach guitar, and here's why, without really going deep on that. And then it's like, I understand veterans aren't the only ones, but obviously you gravitated towards our veterans, which is honorable. And I'm just curious, um, you know, of all of the groups in the community that are out there, it's the veterans that stood out, just like it was for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely the invisible wounds of war, and that has something that is more prevalent in more recent wars. And um, having something, engagement in arts and music can really help with, like I said, the whole health wellness, right? So it helps on the biopsychosocial wellness of individuals. And a lot of our veterans, there's a very high suicide rate of our nation's veterans, and there's definitely a need for something that is healthy, something that encourages community and connection, and something where, it doesn't cost that much to go get a ukulele or get a guitar or some
Or
or
some paintbrushes.
some
Yeah.
paintbrushes and some paint, right? A watercolor set, I don't know, like whatever.
Mhm.
And there's just I don't necessarily want to I just want to say that there's preliminary results that show engagement in community art mu and music making can help with depression, isolation, and encourage peer support and community connection.
I've
Yeah.
seen that in the guitar lessons that I've given. It's absolutely remarkable and fascinating to me to see like the light bulb turns on, and usually the comment that comes after that is, Tom, thank you. You have no idea how much you have changed my life.
Mhm.
And this is just me teaching them how to play the same instrument that I learned to play, several years ago and never thought anything of it. I'm just intrigued,
Mhm.
by that. Any comments on that, Logan, that, to add to what Danielle is talking about?
Yeah, I mean, um, military populations just statistically are more likely to encounter certain challenges, like TBI, of course. A lot of our patients receive concussion due to like duty related injuries. Um, but also Alaska, I mean, we are in a unique position where we do have a lot of like slip and falls on ice that can happen, unfortunately. Yeah, I think the art, the music, particularly for veteran populations, I mean, so much of your identity and your self-image, especially while you're active duty, is wrapped up in being a soldier and being a service member. So there is a little bit of, I would say, like identity disruption when you leave the service. It's this like rediscovery of yourself because oftentimes you enlist very young. Um, some folks may enlist right out of high school. You're not quite the same level of an adult as you would be if you were to enlist later on. So you don't really know, what life is going to be like most of the time. And it can be incredibly stressful so that, um, what is the word I'm looking for? The separation process is incredibly stressful for a lot of our service members. And so I think the art, the music, one is just, of course, a tool to process those feelings and those emotions. But then really the community engagement piece, it's finding that like-minded group of people who are either currently going through those challenges or who have been there. Um, that is really just an invaluable tool for those folks.
And it shows. I know I can speak to those students, those veterans that I've worked with, and even the ones that I'm not teaching, but it's tied into music and the arts. We've had a few guests here who expressed, just what both art and music have done for them, and it's just a remarkable story. Thank you for educating me on what it is that you both do.
I do have to ask, and I mean, partly because I know the answer, but I do feel obligated that some portion of these episodes is a requirement for us to teach the masses out there who are listening. Somewhere out there, there is a buddy who has got a friend who served in the military and some things are going weird and he doesn't quite understand what's happening. You know, he knows his buddy served. What are some things to look out for? Those are some things that we can provide to our listeners. So I just want to kind of take real quick and jump back to something that Danielle, you had mentioned at the beginning of the episode. You mentioned the word comorbidities, right? What exactly does comorbidities mean?
That means having more than one, um, I guess, diagnosis or symptom or something happening at the same time. So, for example, Logan and I see a lot of patients that have comorbidity with TBI, with PTSD, and oftentimes pain. So, there's a lot kind of happening with the service member and veteran.
Okay,
Sorry,
Logan.
that was a clinical term. That was a
No, that's good.
okay.
Logan,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
comorbidity mean in like the art world,
It's
not the
probably means
music
the
world,
same
the
thing.
art world.
Essentially the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
it's less like the art world and more so just like the
okay.
the mental health world.
So what I wanted to do there is I wanted our listeners to hear that there's really no difference. Comorbidity
Oh,
means that there's going to be things that they're experiencing or things, symptoms and side effects from their potential illness or trauma that mirror each other. So it's very hard to kind of map out which is causing which.
absolutely.
So, in saying that, would it be fair to assume that many of the patients who come to, or maybe not many, some of the patients who come to the music therapy program also attend the art therapy program? And if they do, what do those programs look like in terms of length? And how are those assessed? Who's the best candidate for which one?
Sure. Yeah. So, I would say Logan and I have some patients that are kind of shared patients. I will speak for music therapy and then Logan can talk for her art therapy. But music, because I do neurologic music therapy, pretty much situated in a TBI clinic, I do a lot of music interventions that address cognitive impairments. So, we're talking like memory, we're talking executive function, focus and attention. So, all of the more cognitive kind of dysfunction that a patient could be experiencing, music, getting engaged in active music making is a great way to fire up those neurons in the brain. However, I do oftentimes work with patients with more behavioral health needs. And with music, the way that we address that, obviously, getting on an instrument can help improve mood. But also we do songwriting for emotional expression. Drumming is excellent for emotion regulation. I will help with breathing and relaxation, so for anxiety and stress management. And yeah, I mean, I feel like that's really kind of covers it. But I would say a lot of my patients definitely have more of that cognitive impairment when they're coming in.
Okay, so when you're saying cognitive impairment for our listeners who maybe are concerned about someone who is close to them, what would you say are some things that maybe they should look for? Like some identifiers that would, kind of, maybe specify to them that hey, maybe I should, recommend or maybe talk to them or suggest, we're seeking some kind of therapy like this.
Well, so for patients, when I think about like the veteran population specifically, um, people's brains they're very malleable, so they can heal. Like your people's brains can heal. And I'm speaking mostly about like mild concussions, right? So, it it's not often that they will be experiencing tons of cognitive impairment, 7 to 10 years after their brain injury. If they've had a lot of brain injuries, multiple brain injuries back to back, like or some really kind of big ones as far as like blast exposure, things along those lines from deployment, And those kind of things usually kind of come out in more behavioral health type, with a little bit more trauma related experiences. So I would say majority of my cognitive patients that I work with are pretty acute. So like they just recently had their brain injury, like after maybe 30 days, 30 to 60 days, something like that. And so we're really just trying to like fire it up, right? And make those connections again in the brain. However, with veterans, it's always a good thing because when we let our brain rest is when our brain gets slows down, right? So it's always a good thing to learn something new. It's like learning a new language, right? Or doing a crossword puzzle. It's just firing it up. But it's can be very enjoyable for a lot of patients. But yeah, I would say, really for our veterans is just kind of keeping an eye on mood, on frustration, on I would say kind of more trauma related experiences and how they are responding to those.
Okay. Logan, would you answer that the same, or would you say that there's a kind of a different, more unique assessment on determining who's kind of best qualified for like a round of art therapy, so to say?
Yeah, I think Danielle is uniquely poised as a neurologic music therapist to really address those cognitive issues with our patients. That is definitely something I do significantly less cognitive work than Danielle. My patients primarily are working through and navigating the emotional effects of TBI or post-traumatic stress or those other psychological health conditions. Here in the art therapy office, we of course do a lot of work around stress and anxiety management. We do a significant amount of trauma processing. I think I mentioned earlier that the masks are a very common tool, and specifically like military art therapy sessions for processing trauma. I currently run, this is part of our holistic um, recovery model that we have not only in our TBI clinic, but in other Intrepid Spirits and TBI clinics around the country. I do a co-treatment group with our occupational therapy program for anger and irritability management, which can be a very significant issue for many folks who are recovering from acute concussion or that long-term post-concussion syndrome. That stress tolerance, the threshold for the amount of anger that you can tolerate is very small. So really strengthening those skills where we can. Um, yeah, I do a lot of work around sleep. I am lucky that the Creative Forces program they developed their own art therapy protocol for working through nightmares. And then we have another art therapist in the network who also addresses sleep paralysis. And so he very graciously shared that protocol with me, and that we do use sometimes here in the clinic. Um, but yeah, I think art therapy is a lot more focused on addressing the emotional challenges and building up those supports for our patients rather than the cognitive work that Danielle does.
Could you step us through a typical session? I mean, it could be any of your sessions that what can we expect, or maybe a veteran expect when they go through any of your sessions? Maybe just take a moment to step us through that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, for example, if I was, you come into my office as a veteran and you're about to start a trial of art therapy sessions, I would have you come in, I would introduce you to the art therapy room space. I would show you guys, but in art therapy, the art is actually considered an extension of the patient, and so that is private. But yeah, I'm a big stickler for consent when it comes to disclosing patient artwork or imagery
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
because it's
understandable.
therapeutic. It's made during the therapy process, so we have to honor it and respect it. So that would be one thing that I really do like to
I'm
reiterate
so
and
glad that you
enforce.
said that. I really am. All those people who
Good.
think like their business is going to be aired on, the everyone's news channels or whatnot. Like, it
Mhm.
makes me happy to hear you guys say that you protect the artist's privacy. So
Yeah,
That's
yeah. And
awesome.
I tell my patients, everything that we make in here, it's yours. If you want to throw it in the trash can when we're done with it, that's your choice. If you want to take it home, that is also your choice. Or if you wanted to display it on the wall and have someone who comes in for treatment after you be able to see it and resonate with it, that is also something that they can choose. Yeah, giving them as much agency, them being our patients, agency and control over the artwork. I tell them, my office locks. People are not allowed in this space, unless I let them in for therapy. So big like stickler for that. Um, so yeah, I would have folks come in, explain the space, explain, how art therapy works. It touches on different parts of the brain than traditional talk therapy. So that's why it's a really great treatment modality for TBI, but also that kind of like holistic treatment model. Um, I would, of course, I think I mentioned earlier, like the bridge with path assessment. That's one I've been doing a lot with my intakes recently. And that's a really great way of working with someone and developing treatment goals, things that we want to work towards. During the course of that art project, I'll, explain all of the art materials that I have. Oftentimes we do a quick demo, so I'll show people how to use the materials, how you can layer things and blend things to get certain results. And a lot of that is kind of like norming the fact that not very many people identify as visual artists in this day and age. Most people make art in elementary school, and it's something that is then stopped at some point, and we leave it in school, and we don't pick it back up in adulthood. So it makes sense that, those artistic skills have stagnated a little bit over the years. So it really is just a lot of like validating and giving people the grace to have fun with the art and to explore rather than to place so many expectations on themselves.
It kind of reminds me of our conversation with Tommy, who was a writer, a poet. And I know one of the questions that came up was how do you respond to poetry as stupid, right?
Oh
And
man.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, guitar is certainly cool, and being a musician has its perks. But
Yeah,
if
well
it,
this guy came back with,
what do you tell these veterans who are like having second thoughts about art, artwork? What do you tell them?
Mhm. At least in my clinic, I ask them, where that judgment is coming from. Is it coming from hearing people around them call art stupid? Is it feeling silly while you're making the artwork?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Sometimes all it comes down to is like allowing themselves to give themselves permission to have fun and make the art. I don't know, Danielle, how do you counter that in music therapy?
what
So
did you tell me?
I probably just said, why don't you just try it and give it a chance and
Yeah, I
make
think it was maybe a little more direct, like, hey,
probably.
shut up and just
Um,
try it.
no, but
Ooh, okay.
I probably said, why don't you, there's no harm in giving something a shot, right? And then if it's not your thing, then you don't have to do it anymore. But if you find even an ounce of benefit in it, then why not?
Yeah, I guess you could say is that it turned out it was my thing. So
It turned out it was your thing.
yeah,
So
it was my thing.
now, look at you now.
Yeah, look
Did
at
you
me now.
point him towards guitar?
Oh no,
No,
Matt, no, Matt,
Oh.
Matt, you share your story.
no, I'd been playing. I'd started playing. I played a really sick air guitar right out of high school. I mean, you're not going to
Um,
find many people
yeah.
in this town in southeast Nebraska who can play a mean air guitar like me. Um,
Are there
but
pictures?
no,
I'm
I mean,
sorry, that's a private question.
there's no pictures. We didn't have pictures back then. This is like 40 years ago, Tom. Cell phones weren't real.
Oh
Um,
boy.
no,
All right.
I played shortly out of high school, and then I was in a country band and played bass guitar, and then I just really kind of hobby guitar playing, So when I sustained my TBI and wound up at Danielle's office, and she's talking about music therapy as a form of healing. I'm not gonna lie to you, listeners. I thought it was weird. I thought it was silly. Like you're not gonna tell me music is gonna heal me. Man, I am the dumbest thing on this planet because the things that it healed was anxiety, stress, depression. All those things were detrimental to my overall health. So here I sit 6, 7, 8 years later with a smile on my face, and I got two people here who can share that with me. So, yeah, I'm telling you, just accept the possibility that the coin isn't tarnished on the other side too.
Yeah.
So,
I love Matt's story. He was you were a little resistant, but
yeah, yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
you look at you now, you know.
Yeah, look at
Success,
me now.
success story.
I do want to ask you a question. I want to jump right back on topic here because I know something that you made me do, and I want people to
Oh
know
God.
about this, is including the patient in I guess, kind of the overall recovery process and the way that they can kind of view their journey from maybe an outside perspective. And one of the things that you had us do, I want to say it was a National Endowment for the Arts Summit, and it was the first time I had to get up and play in front of people.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, I'd played in front of people before, but I was super nervous. I thought I was gonna have a panic attack.
Hmm.
You know, and right before we went up there, I remember you handing out a sheet of paper, and on that sheet of paper were these questions. And these questions were very kind of, how do you feel right now? Like oh my God, the room's gonna blow up. I don't know. It's all crazy. It's all chaos. And then afterwards, she would have us fill it out again and see how we felt. Now a lot of the questions we still felt the same. It was too soon, you know, but there was the opportunity for us as patients to be a part of the healing process and kind of track it by doing that. So my question is, Danielle, do you still do that? And Logan, do you have something kind of like that you do with your art therapy?
Yeah, so I typically try, obviously, to get patients to learn how to regulate whenever there's like a performance in the community, no matter what, people are going to get, nervous. I get nervous, right? And I've done it for so long.
Yeah,
Um,
knees weak, arms are heavy,
yeah,
vomit on my sweater already.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I really encourage participants to, connect to their breath, like be mindful of their body, be mindful of their breath, use their breath to relax, to calm. And positive affirmations are huge, right? Talking yourself into things, talking yourself through things is very important in a positive way. So I think just a lot of that. Yeah, I mean, I still do that. And then afterwards, obviously, we'll kind of debrief, like, what was that like, and what tools worked to help manage your anxiety and your stress? Like, how could we do it different next time? Or what went right? What were some things that we want to improve on, right? Is just bringing awareness to the experience and bringing awareness to our bodies in the experience. I like to do that a lot with my patients.
I think one of the things that we had Tommy Logan. I'm gonna let you answer this, but something that Danielle said kind of made me think of this. Tommy, the author from Battle Creek, Michigan, we had on here, he said that recovery is a very inside job. You have to be willing to do the work. So, I mean, if I just say I want my life to change and I commit nothing to it, then it won't change. So, yeah, having a portion of that responsibility fall on the patient, to kind of, hey, if we are going to do this, we are going to do this. It's not me. It's not just you. It's we. So,
True.
Logan, how would you answer?
Um, I mean, similar to Danielle, a lot of the art making, the active art making, it's very sensorial. I mean, it's taking in these materials in your environment, manipulating them. So there's a great deal of, tactile feedback, visual feedback, of course. Occasionally you'll get some art materials and techniques that are a little bit more auditory, but that's definitely Danielle's Danielle's piece of the puzzle. Um, yeah, developing those skills for emotional regulation, interoception. Um, I mean, that's huge, not just in TBI recovery, going back to that anger, irritability piece, knowing what's going on inside. I mean, knowledge is power. Understanding it so that you can then use these tools that you learn in session to regulate and to cope. Um, yeah, I think that's my answer.
Okay.
Can't think of anything else.
So I think so. We've touched today quite a bit on traumatic brain injury and how these forms of creative expression can help with stress, anxiety, nervousness, maybe confidence, maybe kind of how they see themselves or how we see ourselves as people as we deal through trauma. Um, Back to the comorbidities, would you say that in terms of PTSD, these creative forms of expression combat the same way that they do for things like traumatic brain injury?
Well, okay, so trauma is in both TBI, traumatic brain injury, and post-traumatic stress. And I think that a lot of them, well, I know TBI really goes hand in hand with PTSD, right? There's, I would say even down to somebody slipping on ice, right? They're going to be nervous and maybe even traumatized if they have to walk on ice again, if they've ever fallen on ice, right? I know
Mm-hmm.
this because I've fallen on ice. So I think there's levels to the traumatic impact of the traumatic event, right? So um I guess that would be the answer I would say for that one is that yes, I think that they go hand in hand. Now, not, and but not all PTSD comes from a TBI, right? So,
Yeah.
but typically with a TBI, there is going to be some sort of level of trauma from that experience of your TBI. Car accident, fall, blast, a jump from a bad parachute jump from an airplane, all of these things are going to leave some sort of lasting impression on when and if you have to do that activity again.
Okay. So it kind of all really just kind of depends on the severity of
Hmm.
the injury,
Hmm.
um, and the trauma, or the I guess you could say that the trauma of the event that would kind of cause certain things to work better in other areas. Whereas maybe the explosions or whatever that I experienced caused the TBI, but I'm not comfortable with outward forms of expression like music. So I choose something that's maybe a little more inward, a little more kind of emotionally connected to myself, where it'd be something like art therapy. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how do you measure whether you're combating those things like anxiety, stress, depression, and nervousness. Is there a way that you can see that happen when you're in a session with somebody? Does it come across as like an emotional reaction to something in the session? I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I mean, as mental health clinicians, like we're trained to be present in the therapeutic space and to hold a space for our patients to express themselves in a safe environment. I will say though that because art therapy, music therapy, dance movement therapy, the other creative arts therapies, they're very qualitative things. They're things that we feel and things that we know change our lives. So coming up with that like quantitative data to support the why does this work? Let's put numbers and words to something that isn't rooted in numbers and words. It's really hard. And I think as an initiative, as a Creative Forces initiative, that's something that we've been really lucky to support. Our program does a lot of research into the creative arts therapies. Like I said, putting that quantitative data, the number and
yeah,
letters to
it's
why
hard
it
to
works.
throw a how it quantifies.
Yeah.
I ask that because I know for Tom and myself, we write music and we create these melodies and we structure songs, and one of the things that we always ask ourselves is, how do we know if a song is done? Well, I mean, one of the units I use to kind of measure whether I determine a song is done is, has it made an impact? Do I see an emotional connection from somebody who's hearing it?
Hmm.
So, from the therapeutic side of this, I mean, you guys really are kind of expected to be these superheroes, but your guys' training and your education really allows you to kind of see the things that most people don't see. So, I was kind of curious: is do you see those kind of breakthroughs happen? How often do they happen? And maybe if you can, don't go into specifics about it. Maybe you guys can talk about one specific breakthrough that you experienced with a patient that just kind of elicited emotional reaction out of you, kind of fed that why.
Hmm. I'm gonna just kind of touch on like actually like researching the impact of creative arts therapies because it is a difficult thing to do, and I remember when I took a research course in my master's program how difficult it is to research something like music therapy because it's not like you can take a patient and say, okay, we're not going to give you any other treatment. You're not going to get any pain medication. You're not going to get any psychotherapy for your PTSD or, whatever. You're just going to get music therapy, right? That would be very unethical to do to a patient. So it's very hard to pull out like what did the music therapy, what was the change that the music therapy did, right? What was the impact? Um, and that is something that we have been working on finding ways to research the healing benefits of creative arts therapies. And I would like to talk about the initiative at some point here and kind of share a little bit about the initiative because there is a research component to the Creative Forces Initiative, and it's very interesting to read. There's 23 peer-reviewed publications in the Creative Forces Research Inventory, and it's growing. So I'm doing two right now. We've mentioned in our conversation Creative Forces, and Creative Forces is an initiative, and it's a partnership between the National Endowment for the Arts and the Department of War, and actually the VA. And it places creative arts therapists, so like myself, music therapy, Logan with art therapy, and also dance movement therapy, in military treatment facilities nationwide. And so it seeks to improve the health and well-being and quality of life for our military and veteran populations who are exposed to trauma, and as well as their families and caregivers. So it's a really special program, and there is a community component, and there's actually a music therapist at the Omaha VA. Um,
Mm-hmm. I think I've met her.
Kirsten Meyer, yeah, so she's there at the Omaha VA. And yeah, I just, it's well, right now there's Creative Forces has a total of 12 sites, seven in the DOW and five in the VA. So, it's just a really special thing. Yeah, so I just wanted to just share about that and just let everyone know that um, it's a really awesome initiative. That's why I'm here. That's why Logan's here, and we're doing the work and hopefully making the impact.
Well, Danielle, I got to tell you, in the episodes that we have done prior to having both of you on the show, your names have been brought up, okay, by people that we have had on the show. So we've always known we're coming for you, So yeah, it was always a goal to have you on here and to share firsthand experience from doing those things that are making impacts with veterans, and Logan, I think it's awesome that you guys are this team, and you guys are back and forth, kind of battling through it. And man, I'm so excited. Tom,
All right.
Tom, I told you they were cool people. I told you.
Oh, for selfish reasons for me, it's like I'm so glad you're here to answer my questions. But I won't quiz you like Matt's going to when we end the program. And
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so the Creative Forces website is www.arts.gov/initiatives/creative forces creative dash forces. So it'll be good to put that in your description.
God, we are so appreciative to have you here.
Well, thank you for having us. I also
And
just want to say that my opinions are my own and do not reflect the views of my employer.
okay.
Yes, I agree. My opinions are my own.
Yeah. I'm trying to
Danielle,
remember if you even mentioned your employer, which is like I didn't did you
Well,
ask
it did.
Matt?
Somehow that felt oddly
Did you
rehearsed.
ask? Did you ask Matt? Good
So I will
Lord.
wait, hold on. I will say one more thing. Let me say it
Yeah.
real nice. Let me say it real nice here. The Creative Forces program places creative arts therapies at the core of patient-centered care at clinical sites throughout the country, including telehealth services, and increases access to community arts and activities to promote health, quality of life for military service members, veterans, and their families and caregivers. Creative Forces is managed in partnership with the Henry M. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine and Mid America Arts Alliance.
yeah. So if you are interested in finding an art therapist in your community, I think similar to music therapy, there's not very many of us, but it is a growing field. You can go to the American Art Therapy Credentials Board website, I believe, or the American Art Therapy Association, excuse me. And I will send you a link to it. And there they have a little section where you can search for providers. So you can find licensed art therapists, I believe by state, location, somehow like that. So you can find us around.
Yeah, and same thing with music therapy. It's American Music Therapy Association. Just Google search that and you can do a locate a therapist. And dance movement therapy also. We don't have one of those here in Anchorage, but there are some within the Creative Forces network. So if you're not near a Creative Forces site, you can look up the Dance Movement Therapy Association website and find one of those too.
For the veteran who's not quite wanting to make that step, is there a message to them to kind of guide them to you?
Just give it a shot and see how see how you like it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. Or, there's a lot of ways to engage. I'm just gonna speak like for music. There's many ways to engage in music. You don't have to take, formal lessons. You don't have to I mean, these days there's so many things online that you can learn. You can literally learn an instrument on YouTube if you had time and wanted to do that. You could grab a drum like a bongo or a djembe off of Facebook Marketplace and crank up your favorite song and just jam out to it, right? It doesn't even have to be a professionally trained situation. It's just the active engagement in, and I think that you could reap some benefits just doing that alone. And then if you felt like you wanted to work clinically with someone, I would highly recommend looking on that AMTA website, the Music Therapy Association website, and find someone. There's also music therapists who work virtually. So you could do virtual music therapy clinical sessions. So there are ways. It's just, finding, I guess, I don't know, the want.
Very
Yeah.
good. Very good. Danielle, Logan, thank you both for being here and for the amazing work that you're both doing. I guess the takeaway from this is not all struggles are visible, as we had mentioned at the top of the program, and it's just so powerful to see how both music and the arts really can help. And for anyone who's listening, if this sounds familiar, just know you're not alone. All right, Matt, let's wrap it up. Everyone, thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Roundtable Where Heroes Talk. I'm Tom Lamog with Matthew Jones. Keep the conversation going, folks. Keep honoring your heroes.